inspire.
Welcome back to Starting Now. I'm your host, Jeff Sarris. This is the show where I talk to entrepreneurs to reveal the unexpected paths to entrepreneurship. Today on the show, I am talking to Pippin Williamson of Sandhills Development and Sandhills Brewery, Easy Digital Downloads. The list goes on. His main company is Sandhills Development, and at Sandhills, what they've done is they've built WordPress products, plugins, and various things to help you start your business, make money online, and get rolling on your next idea. He's also done so much more beyond just the products themselves. He has a wonderful philosophy of hiring, how to treat employees really well, and he's also started a brewery, a physical retail location brewery. He has a couple locations for that. And he's into not only real estate, but using real estate as a conservation practice, not buying just a retail space or buying a physical spot and building it up to sell, but actually conserving land for the future. This was a wonderful conversation, and he's just an awesome person that I think you're really going to I think you're going to enjoy this episode. Like, as always, I feel that way, but I think you're really going to appreciate just Pippin as a person. He's approaching business well. So that's enough from me for now. Without further ado, let's dive right into my conversation with Pippin. So let's dive right in then to Sandhills. And so how would you just sort of give the little rundown of what Sandhills is, what you do, because you cover a lot of things, not just digital, not just the brewery.
Right.
Yeah.
So Sandhills Development, the short version is we are a software company that produces primarily e-commerce focused WordPress products. So we built a series of WordPress plugins to help mostly small business owners, anybody from like a solopreneur up to, a multi-person company, hundreds of people, dozens of people, et cetera. We build products to help them run their companies. So we kind of consider them to be foundational products. So, running your e-commerce store, running your affiliate program, running your membership system, taking payments. Almost everything we do is related to taking payments, with the exception of our event calendar plugin called Sugar Calendar. And so that's where everything started. That's where we got our start, was building products like that. Today, we're a little bit more diversified. Like, that is still our bread and butter. But we also own and operate a brewery. So we started Sandhills Brewing. We started working on about 4 years ago, and then it actually opened 2.5 years ago. And then we also do a little bit of real estate. So we've got several properties, primarily commercial, as well as some nature conservation properties. And kind of our long-term goal is to enjoy things that, enjoy the work that we're doing, and hopefully make improvements in people's lives. Ultimately, that's kind of the goal.
Yeah. And
so today we're 27 people distributed all around the world. 27 people in Sandhills Development, and then that doesn't count the brewery. The brewery is another about 15 people. With the exception of the brewery, 100% distributed. So we're in numerous different countries and all around the U.S.
Yeah, and you've really sort of showcased who you are through the things you're doing. You're doing philanthropic things, like you said, the nature conservation, and I love your approach to business, and that's why I really wanted to talk to you. I want to dive into a bunch of things with like how you've approached hiring and the nature and approach to conserving nature and whatnot. I wanted to start with problem solving, though, because I think there's a very specific type of entrepreneur. Like, I definitely fit in this role, and I know you've written about it as well, where problem solving is what really brings you alive. And I feel the same way.
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, that's what makes me come alive. Like, at the start of the day, I'm like, oh, I want to solve this. This is so exciting. Where would you say that comes from for you?
I think some of it is probably genetic. There's everybody's different, but there are people that something about their physiology just makes them want to solve problems. Like, that's the thing that makes their brain happy. I am definitely that way. My dad is that way too. My brother is that way. My sister's maybe a little bit, not as much. And then some of it I think is also, about the environment that you live in, and like the environment that I was raised in, for example, was we were problem solving, like, with even as like young kids. My dad would involve my brother and I in whatever the problem was, when it, like, in terms of like maintenance, everything from plumbing to construction, et cetera. So like, oh, the drain line broke under the sink. Well, guess what? I'm going to show you how to fix it. And so like everything was always hands on. We always just kind of solved problems ourselves to the best of our ability. So that had a lot to do with it. But problem solving is definitely where I have fun. Like, that's the reason that our software products exist today, was because we were trying to solve problems that we were having. Some of those problems were ones that like I kind of created for myself and then worked to solve them myself. Because like Sandhills development started by, I was just building these little software products for WordPress, and I was just kind of building anything and everything. I didn't really have a purpose or a particular kind of problem I was trying to solve. And then I started selling them. And at some point I realized I needed a better platform to sell them, because I was starting to have problems. I didn't have access to my customer data. I didn't have control, et cetera. And all of those, depending on the lens that you look at them.
What were the reasons you didn't have access? Yeah.
Because so when I first started selling WordPress products, I was selling on the Code Canyon marketplace run by Envato. And so basically it was this marketplace that somebody else ran. And so I was beholden to their rules. And one of those rules was I didn't get any access to customer data. They took a commission. I didn't have a ton of control over pricing and stuff like that. And so, those were, depending on the lens that you look at it through, a problem. And so I wanted to solve those problems. And so I built a product to do it. And that's all of our products were a result of some kind of problem. And even today, we still do it that way. I mean, our most recent example is we've built this thing called the payout service. One of our main products is an affiliate program. So it's called Affiliate WP, and it allows people, business owners, to set up and run their own affiliate program. And part of running an affiliate program is keeping track of commissions. So when an affiliate, promotes your product or service, and you have to reward them, and you give them, $5, $20, whatever it is. And then at some point you have to pay them. Well, it turns out that paying them is actually really hard.
It absolutely is.
Like, like for some people it's easy. Like you and I, we both live in the United States. And so, I can send you a PayPal payment. I can, you could have a Stripe account. I can mail you a check. There's lots of different ways to do it. There's some, bank to bank transfers, depending on what bank you use and what bank I use. But what if you extrapolate it out and you go all over the world, and maybe you have limitations, you can't use PayPal, or you have currency conversion issues, or like all of these different challenges. Those were all problems that our customers were experiencing and that we were experiencing. And so we built this thing called the payout service that just takes care of all of it and makes it dramatically simpler. We wanted to solve the problem. I think problem solving is absolutely, it's not everybody's entrepreneurship method, but it's definitely mine.
Yeah. I live in the same exact world in that regard. I want to talk about Affiliate WP then a little bit, because the problem you solved there was a major one, in that there wasn't a good product that people could use within the WordPress ecosystem to run an affiliate program. But then I love that you went from there and then added the payout service, because arguably it created it revealed another problem.
Absolutely. We solved part of the problem, but it's always more complex than just, what's the surface problem. There's always more to it. At the time we built some of our other existing products, and they were doing well, and we were running an affiliate program using another tool that was already out there. And we were just having a rough time with it. But that was also the same tool that we were recommending to our customers. So our customers were having the same sets of problems that we were. And one day I just remember we ran into another problem with it, and discovered a huge data discrepancy, and realized, like, I don't even know what these people are supposed to be paid. I don't know how much they've earned. Have we overpaid them? Have we underpaid them? Like, it doesn't give us any level of confidence. And I just like threw my hands up in the air. I was like, fine, I'll just build it myself. So sat down, and I think within 30 days we had a working tool. It grew from there. It's now our biggest product by far. At that time, easy digital downloads was our bread and butter. But Affiliate WP is more than 2x easy digital downloads now. Yeah.
Yeah, which actually I want to talk about that as well then. So the revenue for easy digital downloads versus, because you are open, like if you're comfortable talking about it, I know you've written about
totally.
it in your year end. Okay, cool. The customer base, the amount of people in the digital downloads ecosystem is massive compared to Affiliate WP, but you've taken different approaches to revenue. And I feel like you learned from EDD and then applied it maybe. If you can talk a little bit about that and what you've learned in the process.
So when we were first launching our products, EDD or Easy Digital Downloads was one of our earlier ones. And we didn't really know how to best sell it. Like we didn't know what the pricing models were. We just kind of like what most people do is we just kind of followed what the other models that were out there. So we adopted what's called the freemium or the add-on model, where basically we give away the core chunk of the software for free, and then we build premium upgrades or add-ons that you pay $50 for that one, $20 for that one, $100 for that one, and then you build a large catalog of these a la carte upgrades. And at that time, this is about 10 years ago. No, sorry, not quite long ago. 8 years ago. That was kind of considered the default, the best, and everybody kind of followed it. Well, we all, and in this case, we all being most of the WordPress community, especially the kind of the earlier players, realize like there's a lot of problems with that. So a couple of the problems, just as quick examples, is there's this thing called the tyranny of choice, which is basically, it's the same thing that restaurants encounter. If you give a customer a huge list of options to pick from, they get paralyzed, and it's difficult to make a choice. Have you ever gone to a restaurant menu and you have 10 pages and you don't even know what to order? And so finally you're just like, okay, I'll just take the safe one. I'll just take the thing that I'm familiar with. Super common. So if you give customers too many options, it's hard for them to understand what the options are, and they end up maybe not even picking anything. So that's one problem. Next problem is you can have a perception of nickel and diming because, it's $5 there, $10 here, $20 there, $50 here, $20 there. And, it can be a big mental hurdle for customers to get over. Whether or not the price point that they ultimately pay for everything is, appropriate. If you take your wallet out 10 times and spend $10 each time, it actually feels like you spent more than if you spent $100 one time. It's, psychology is weird. So that was a problem. And then there was a lot of maintenance problems with it because we basically, we have a product, but we have to manage 50 different sales pages. We have 50 different prices, 50 different file downloads. And it's really cumbersome. It's cumbersome from a management perspective. It's from a buying perspective, from a customer installation perspective. Everything is challenging. So that was the model that we used for a long time, and we were really starting to notice problems with it. When we launched Affiliate OP, we went with a different model. We basically said there are 3 price points. You pick A, B, or C, and that's it. And then if you pick the higher tier, you get more features. But you still only have to make one choice. You only have to pull out your credit card one time. And it worked so much better. It was better from our perspective. It was better from the customer's perspective. It was better all the way around. And it also turned out that because it was better for everybody, people bought it more. We sold a lot more. We made a lot more money. And so it's a model that we have then been slowly working on transitioning everything else over to. We did transition our Restricted Content Pro product, which is formerly ours. We recently sold that to iThemes. And then we did it with another product that we acquired called WP Simple Pay. We acquired that just a year and a half or so ago. And then we've been working on doing that with Easy Digital Downloads. Now, Easy Digital Downloads was a little challenging because we had this huge catalog of premium add-ons, and we didn't want to just like completely change it because there are some people that really like the add-on model, and then we're gonna make people angry, and so we've been working on doing it.
The customer base there is huge, right? I mean, what kind of numbers?
It's so with EDD we have about 80,000 active websites running it, and then in terms of customers, It's less than that. It's actually a little bit hard to measure because, at the end of the day, a customer is somebody that gives you money. But but figuring out between, paid customers versus free users that are going to upgrade, it's in the 30 to 40,000 range. And so, it's
big ship
a
to
big
steer.
number.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, also we have a lot of old customers, we have a lot of new customers. And so, we have customers that have expired. And so maybe they're not currently a paying customer, but they might be in a year. And if we change the pricing model completely, but we make it, if we don't take into account all of the old subscriptions, all the old license keys that are expired and treat them well in our changeover with the pricing model, like they're not going to come back.
Yeah.
And so keeping all of those things in mind is one of the many challenges of trying to change a pricing model.
Yeah, I mean, because that's a huge that can be a huge sticking point for someone, especially if they've been in the ecosystem for a while. They understand what they own, because there's also a subscription model to pay for support, essentially, for these add-ons, correct?
So it's every customer gets automatic support with their purchase, but we also do offer a subscription for basically top tier support. We call it priority support. If you want to be put at the top of the support queues, you can pay a little bit of extra per month or per year, and you get priority.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, because there are it's the different levels, just like you mentioned in affiliate WP, different levels of service and access that people are getting. So in that transition with easy digital downloads, what are some of the steps now that you've been able to take, and how has that worked out for you so far with the customer base?
Sure. So we've done a number of things. One of the first ones that we did is we raised prices. We had one of the first things that made us realize our problem was basically that our average customer value was too low because we sold too many low priced items. And this was 4 years ago, I think, when we did this. We basically doubled our prices overnight. That was a little bit of good, a little bit of bad. We did some aspects of it, we did very, very well. Other aspects, we didn't do so well. And we had some challenges that came about with that. And about 6 months later, we did a little bit of a rollback on some of the prices. We lowered them again. And then what we did is we worked on introducing what we call passes. So all of the individual plugins, all of the add-ons for each individual products are still there. You can still buy any single one a la carte. But what we did is we basically hid that feature. Like, you have to click through a couple of screens in order to find it. Instead, when you go to any individual product, it says this is available if you buy this or this price, basically. Basically a subscription tier. If you buy tier A, tier 2, tier B, or tier C, you get this product. And it shows you your 3 prices. And then we introduced a pricing page that says, here's all of your subscription options, and then it's your standard columns with all of the benefits of it. And so we just kind of introduced a new pricing level or a pricing structure, but left the old one there, so that if you were somebody that wanted to pick and choose, you still could. But if you were a brand new customer, never aware of that, and you just wanted the simplest, easy purchase, we gave you kind of the standard experience. And that has worked really, really well. And now we still sell add-ons individually, but in terms of customer activity and what people buy, the vast majority of people buy subscription access now, which is exactly what we wanted them to do, because it's significantly simpler. It's a better experience, easier for them to understand what they're getting, easier for us to manage. And yeah, it's been a huge improvement.
Yeah, and for me, it was a great upgrade. It was a few bucks more, but I was already spending.
Which one did you upgrade to?
I think All Access. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So we introduced, we call it the personal pass, the professional pass. No, the personal, extended, professional, and All Access. So, the personal pass is you get MailChimp integration, Aweber, basically get your ESPs. and a couple other little features. Then on your extended pass, you get all of the ESPs, and you also get a couple of gateways. So, Stripe integration, extra PayPal integration, and Authorize.net. Then on the professional pass, you get all of those. And then you also get the bigger ticket items, which are like our software licensing feature, which is, if you sell a software product and you want to manage license keys for it, and our recurring payments, if you want to, if you want to sell subscriptions and you want to, manage those subscriptions. And then the last level is the all access, which is you get everything.
Yeah, that's the beauty, is you built these tools, you're using them to sell your products, and then empowering people to build their own businesses. I mean, it's really cyclical.
So that's kind of it's kind of funny that we did all of this, because one of the problems that we ran into, so when we launched Affiliate WP with that pricing model where you just have the 4 options, your personal, your professional, your ultimate, etc., we had to do it completely custom because EDD did not have the ability to do it. We realized that we had a problem because we didn't have a good way to do it. And then what would happen is our customers would come in all the time. They're like, "Hey, what you guys did there is great. How did you do it?" Well, we built it kind of custom, and I can't really tell you how to do it. Here's a couple of tips. And so then the next problem was, okay, we have to build this in a ready to use feature that other people can then, use on their own websites. Because at the end of the day, we want our sites to try to be a model of what our products do. And there should not be a feature shown in terms of the purchasing or the affiliate program or the account areas that you see on our site that is not doable with our products out of the box, because our sites are powered entirely by our products. And so we built a new tool specifically for that purpose to solve that problem. And then we started selling it as another add-on.
Yeah. I mean, it's a proof of concept. You're using your products as a proof of concept of what people can achieve. And we've run into that too, because we sell some WordPress themes, and there's certain platforms, one of our themes we use with our client, the Minimalists. So it's on their website. We've done a bunch of custom work. They've been using it for a decade. So people will come and be like, "Oh, how can I do this one specific thing?" It's like, well, I haven't integrated into the theme yet.
Yeah,
but
totally.
Yeah, you see that happen really quickly. And with the customer base you have in tens of thousands of people, I'm sure that happens very rapidly as soon as you launch something new.
Yeah, it happens a lot. Yeah. Especially because a lot of our customers are very similar to us in terms of, they're also running WordPress product businesses. They sell a WordPress plugin or WordPress themes. I mean, for example, like what you do, these are businesses that are running off of similar business models, similar customer list. I almost guarantee you that you and I have mutual customers. And that's very common for our customers to have, encounter one of our customers that also sells products to our customers. And so, we want to showcase what our products can do, but we want to help our customers also achieve the same results.
Absolutely. And you talked a little bit about selling Restrict Content Pro, but then acquiring things like WP Simple Pay. How do you approach acquisition or purchasing?
So I have a general rule that I've tried to always follow, at least for the last 8 or so years. And that's, okay, first of all, we have to acknowledge a very simple truth. I think there are people that don't want to admit this, but it's an absolute empirical truth, and I will die on this hill. Everything is for sale. Literally everything is for sale at all times, because everybody has a number. You might be building something and say it's not for sale. Yeah, but what about when that person comes and offers you the check that you cannot turn down? So everything empirically is for sale. Doesn't necessarily mean it will be sold, or that you're going to seek it out, or that you're going to want to sell it. But if you recognize that, and then also recognize the benefits of building companies and products in a way that they are easier to hand over to somebody else, it's a really good mentality to have in business. Because ultimately, a company or a product that is easy to sell is a well managed and well run, because your processes are documented, your finances are clear, all of these things that you have to go through if you're going to transfer something to somebody else are in place. So we have always tried to build the mentality that we're going to build to sell. we have no intention of selling our products. We're not looking to sell our products. Like nothing is advertised as for sale. I don't go out and seek buyers, but I recognize that at some point it's not necessarily inevitable, but every company and every product will either sell, they will die over time, they'll slowly dwindle to nothing, or they will be handed over to somebody else, through a succession plan or something, pass it down to your kids or hand it over to your co-founder or something. And that will happen to every single company, period. Like I've never been able to come up with another option. Like one of those three things has to happen. And so build with a mentality to be open to the conversation. And so like with Restricted Content Pro, the way that happened is we got approached and we weren't looking to sell it. It wasn't something that we were planning to do, but we were open to it. And so when somebody came in and wanted to have a conversation, we were ready and willing to entertain it. Because you never know when either the price is right or it's the right opportunity. So that's our main mentality. But in terms of approaching acquisitions that we go out and seek, it's not something I really do. We've done it once or twice. We've considered it a few times. But really only for me, at least, it's if we have like a real need. So I can give you two examples. So 5 years ago at this point, we were running easy digital downloads with an extension marketplace, where we would allow third-party developers, so someone like yourself or anybody else who built WordPress products, they could build a plugin, build an add-on for us, submit it to us, and we would sell it through our marketplace. We would take a commission, and then we would, we basically take care of the delivery. We'd run a marketplace exactly the same way that like what Envato does. And then at one point we shut that down. We decided it was not something we wanted to do. There was a number of challenges with it. And so we went out and we bought every single third-party add-on that was on our marketplace that we wanted to stick around.
That's awesome.
We did it. It's it's either the 2016 or 2017 year in review post that I wrote. If you go to sandhillsdev.com, go to blog, find the 2019 one, or potentially 2021, depending on when this goes out. And then just go back in time. Every post lists the previous years at the top. We talked about it a lot, but basically what we did is we identified all of the add-ons that we knew that we wanted to own and control, and we bought every single one of them. I think we bought 30 or 50 plugins. But we did it for a very strategic purpose, is that we wanted to own and control our ecosystem. That was the very first time that we'd ever done that. And then we bought WP Simple Pay about 2 years ago. And that was a little bit of a different scenario. We didn't go seeking that one out. It was one that kind of like the Restricted Content Pro acquisition just kind of happened unexpectedly. Actually, I was on an interview. We were doing a podcast with me, Phil Dirksen, and I don't remember who the other person was, but we were basically having a roundtable conversation about selling your company. And at this time, I've never sold anything. Like I had sold a couple of small plugins for a couple $1,000s, but nothing significant. And we were having this conversation about, how do you go about selling your companies? What are things that you should think about? What are the challenges, et cetera? And after that podcast wrapped up, Phil sent me an email. It was like, I think we should work together. You want to have a chat? Sure, man. Let's have a chat. Turns out Phil Dirksen started WP Simple Pay, and WP Simple Pay was one of those products that I'm sure anybody who is a product creator has this. There are other products out in the world that you look at and you're like, man, I wish I did that. Like, that is awesome. WP Simple Pay was that for me. Like, I'd always look at that like, man, that is such a cool product. Man, I should have done that. And then so when Phil reached out and said, hey, I would love to, here's the challenges I'm having, and I think potentially there is something that we should consider, and we should chat about it if you're open to it. And we started the conversation, and about 6 months later, we finished it. It was just one of those that worked really well. It complemented our existing products. It was a product that we already knew and liked a lot. It fit right within kind of the stuff that we do, payments and e-commerce and kind of foundational products for businesses. And so it was great.
Yeah, I mean, and did you see it in any way as conflicting with your product line? Because it's so similar, but it's a
Sure.
completely different area.
So not so much from our customer perspective, more from an internal. So at that time, we had once we bought WP Simple Pay, we had three products that had some overlapping functionality. We had Easy Digital Downloads, Restricted Content Pro, and WP Simple Pay. All three of them offered integration with Stripe.com for payment processing. All of them had kind of a base level functionality. Like all of them would allow you to set up a page on your site where somebody can buy something. But they all had their own little nuances. Like EDD had all of the digital file delivery post-purchase, all of the customer records. Restricted Content Pro had all of the recurring payments and the membership management, which EDD had a little bit of, but not as much. And then WP Simple Pay had recurring payments. It had one-time payments, but it didn't really have customer management. So they all had some overlap. The biggest problem was that our development team was now responsible for three different in-depth Stripe integrations. And so it just kind of became a challenge because all three of them were also done differently. They were all three built by different people. Well, that's not entirely true. I built Restricted Content Pro and EDD initially, but then like they were being managed by different people in our development team. And so they all had their own ways. Like EDD worked in Stripe this way, Restricted Content Pro did it this way, WP Simple Pay had a completely different model. And so we just had a lot of conflicting issues with the way that like we had to think about our Stripe integrations. Selling Restricted Content Pro allowed us to narrow our focus significantly and remove some of that overlap, not only for ourselves internally, but also for our customer base. EDD and RCP had quite a bit of functional overlap that we would get questions all the time from customers of, I'm not really sure which one I should use. And honestly, like sometimes our answer would be, they're both going to do it for you. So it's kind of pick one.
Yeah. It's funny because when you start solving problems like this, I feel like it's bound to happen because you weren't necessarily envisioning Restrict Content Pro growing as much as it did, or maybe Easy Digital Downloads either, but both of them need very similar things. Like in my mind, the thing that differentiated them was always the Multisite feature in Restrict Content Pro. So we use that for hosting. And like that was the big reason that we had both of them. Otherwise, all the stuff was built into EDD.
Well, like a good example is we have a plugin for EDD called Content Restriction.
Mm-hmm.
And its entire purpose is to take content on a page and restrict it to a customer. So in order to access that content, you have to buy a product. So a very common use case of this was like somebody that sold a product and they wanted to only give access to documentation after the purchase was completed. So we built this little plugin. Restricted Content Pro at the time would have served that purpose, but it didn't handle one-time purchases very well. It only handled subscriptions. And we had people that wanted to do one-time purchases. So we're like, well, we're kind of in a rock and a hard place. Like RCP can't quite do it. EDD does the payment processing, but doesn't do the content restriction. And so we're like, okay, we'll just build this simple content restriction plugin for EDD. Well, then at some point somebody comes in and they're like, well, I'm already using EDD. I'm using content restriction, but what I really need to do is I need to sell a recurring payment. Like I need to sell a membership. I need this to process monthly. And so then it still didn't make sense for them to use Restricted Content Pro, or they couldn't use it for one reason or another. And so at some point we launched recurring payments for Easy Digital Downloads. And now all of a sudden we have ongoing membership payments like you would have in Restricted Content Pro as a membership platform inside of EDD that is also taking care of content restriction. And then if that membership expires or their payment stops working, they lose their access to the content. And now all of a sudden we have this huge overlap of these two pieces of functionality. They can't quite blend together, but they're definitely almost the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's just when you start here and here, you from two different like core functionality sets. And then as customer requests come in, they slowly creep closer and closer together, and they get a lot of overlap. And so that was, it was bound to happen, and it was continuing to happen. And so removing Restricted Content Pro from our portfolio kind of allowed us to significantly clarify what we build and to reduce our how many things we were giving our attention to.
Yeah, which is awesome. It had to feel a little hard to do so too, just because your customer base is like, they love, because I think of all of your products as you. because like I've been sort of following along, buying your product since it was just Pippin's plugins. It was you were the developer, you were the support, you were everything. So when Restrict Content Pro went away, nothing against the iThemes, the company that bought it,
Yep.
but it's hard. It's like, no, this is Pippin's. Like we can't see it go.
No, I totally get it, and we've heard a lot of that feedback, and that's an interesting challenge. Reputation means a lot,
Oh yeah.
and we're never happy to. Well, okay, we're not happy to hear that somebody's unhappy about the decision that we
Oh
made,
yeah, for
which
sure.
we got. But at the same time, like it's hard to not like be a little happy inside because you're like, oh, the reason you're unhappy is because you're gonna miss us.
Uh-huh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot to manage with the customer base because you don't want them to be disappointed, but it does show. It's one of the only times that I think it's really apparent how much people appreciate what you've done. Like, I mean, it comes through support and everything, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
when it's like, no, this is leaving, it's like, oh no, like I never said
Yeah,
it, but I loved
absolutely.
it.
Well, one of the truths about customer support, and I don't think it matters what industry you work in. If you are in a kind of a support facing position, whether it is sales support, technical support, hardware support, software support, at the end of the day, most people come to you when they have a problem.
Hmm.
And so you're always kind of like hearing, the bad things that are happening, or the challenges that are happening, and you don't hear as many of the celebrations or the thank yous or the good things. Like it's just not a super common thing for people to intentionally take time out of their day just to send a thank you message.
Hmm.
And so most of the time what you hear is the negative. But then when something goes away, all of a sudden, like you get this surge of like, oh no, we really liked that.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah, it's
yeah, and I don't want to take too much of your day, so there's one more thing I really wanted to touch on, and
sure.
it is your hiring process. So, like I mentioned, you started solo as Pippin's plugins and doing things, but you've written a lot about how you approached your first hire, how you approach every hire, and how you have made it a point of building your sort of the stockpile of money so you could actually guarantee that you can pay this person that you've promised you're going to hire. I'd love to just talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So we hired our first. Again, at that time there was no we, it was just me.
Hmm.
But our first full time employee in 2013, and he is still with us today. And I had never hired anybody before, with the exception of like I had done contract jobs. I'd hired somebody that wanted to, come do this little project or, do a few hours of customer support here and there. But I had never been the sole provider of somebody's livelihood. Like that was just not a thing I had done. And so in 2013, I was really nervous about it. I'm a very calculated risk taker, but I'm
Hmm.
pretty risk averse. I don't like gambles. I don't like, putting all of my eggs in one basket and, hope it works. And so in order to do that, when we first hired that person, his name was Sean, I had decided I will have your salary in the bank before I do it because I don't know if this is going to work. And if you're going to commit to me, I want you to know that you're going to be paid. And then we try to continue that for probably the first 4 to 5 hires. And then at that point, it kind of became a lot less realistic.
Oh yeah.
But we still kind of keep that mentality of we always have cash on hand. I spent the first few years literally not taking a dime out of the company ever. I paid myself a salary and we left every single profit in the bank. Whether that was a super smart decision or a terrible decision, I probably could have done some investing with it. But at the end of the day, that was what we decided to do because it was a security feature. It was, I want to make sure that we have a stockpile of cash on hand for when shit hits the fan.
Hmm.
It's unlikely that our revenue will disappear tomorrow. Thankfully, we are in an industry where that type of disruption is highly unlikely. The true likelihood is that if something were to happen, we'll see a downward trend, and we'll have some heads up on it. But what if tomorrow something disappears? Like 2020 has been, I think, a realization year for a lot of businesses about the possibility of that happening. I mean,
Oh yeah.
in March when COVID hit, think about every hospitality business that was dead overnight. And if you look at the businesses that were in an industry significantly affected by COVID-19 in terms of their revenue disappearing, and you look now at the ones that survived were the ones that had planned ahead. They were stuck. And obviously this is not an absolute rule. There's always exceptions. But I think as a general rule, they were the business owners that had put reserves aside. They had taken care to ensure that they have an operating runway. And then you see the ones that haven't survived. And either they chose not to have they chose not to put reserves, or they were just never able to. Not everybody's a failure of a business is necessarily somebody's fault. It's there's lots of reasons for it. But so we made a decision. We wanted to always have an operating runway. So for a long time, I focused on having, if our revenue goes to zero tomorrow, at minimum, we can run for 3 months at full expenses without reducing our payroll by a dime would be our goal. And then we tried to extend that out to go 6 months or a year. And we were able to significantly improve. That was also one of the reasons that we ultimately made the decision to sell Restrict Content Pro. We were in a pretty good cash position at the time, but we realized that, keep in mind, like, we sold it in June, was technically when the deal happened. It got announced in September. But so we're literally in the middle of, like, everything is up in the air. No one has any idea what the world is doing because COVID is wreaking havoc. And we're like, this is the worst time to sell. Like, why would we do this? It is making us money. The sales are still coming in. And actually, it was making more money than it ever had. Like, the beginning of COVID was actually really good for all of our products.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I don't want to benefit off of other people's suffering, but with every kind of crisis, there's always side effects. One of the side effects was that with more people staying home, whether by choice or forced to, a lot more people were looking for side projects. A lot more people were looking at how to move their revenue online. We just so happened to be providing a series of products that help with that. And our sales surged. And so we were in the middle of negotiating the sale of Restricted Content Pro, and all of a sudden sales went, and so then we're thinking, like, this is the wrong time to sell. At the end of the day, we obviously decided to do it. And we did some renegotiating to make sure that everything, like, even if if that was the new normal for sales volumes, we wanted to make sure that it was still a good idea for us to sell it. But we decided one of the things that made us decide to do it was because it allowed us to narrow our focus and reduce the amount of anxiety and stress on our team in a super stressful time. And it gave us over a year runway in the bank. And so, you know what? That was a pretty nice insurance to know that our team has to work less hard and their payroll is guaranteed for a year minimum. And so, that's ultimately what we decided to do. But I really like that mentality when it comes to hiring. There's some downsides to it. Like, for example, a lot of people will say you should hire much more aggressively, because if you hire aggressively, you take a lot of losses early, you ultimately have bigger wins. And there are absolutely cases where that has been the truth. It's not my model. It's never been. Ours has always been a much slower hire within our means. We strive to always maintain profitability. And so unless we really need to, because of, team workload struggling, we usually don't hire unless we can hire that person within our profit margins. And we still pretty well hold true to that today. We just hired 2 new people this month. So that brings us up to, I think, 7 for the year. One of them started this week and one starts next week. And we're still trying to maintain that model. So.
Yeah. I mean, and how you treat your customers too. It is, employees. The people that you hire, you want them to stick around. You're investing in them, they're investing in you, and you want to do your best to give them an environment where they're gonna thrive. And like I
Absolutely.
just wanted to run down. You had a little list. You had wrote about burnout, and you had a list of the things that you want to strive for with your employees that I just think is phenomenal. Allow them to take paid time off whenever needed. Require them to take a minimum of 5 consecutive days off at least twice per year. A $200 bonus when you completely unplug from work for a week. Encourage employees to work when they wish, frequent breaks, sharing of struggles, and just calm at work. I feel like more employers could really benefit from following your model. I mean, it's wonderful. It feels unheard of, sort of in the modern like business
It's definitely
world.
not the common.
Yeah.
Um, so for anybody who hasn't read it, first of all, we are in no way original on this. We're following the footsteps of other people that have done this. Read the book. It doesn't have to be crazy at work.
Mm-hmm.
It's written by Jason Fried and David Hannemeyer Hansen from Basecamp or 37 Signals. And that is like everything you just listed has been things that they have had in their ethos for years, and they've been writing about it. And it's funny because, well, actually it's kind of sad, but like they share these beliefs and how they do it at Basecamp. And there's always people that come in like, that's radical or that's crazy. You're like, actually, it just kind of makes really good sense.
Uh-huh.
So definitely read it. I think it's like 100 pages. It's super easy to read. And I want to give you an example of like one of the things why it's super important. Um, a lot of people have that they work in an environment where if they let's say they burn out or they have a medical issue and they really just aren't able to do work for several months, they're going to lose their job.
Mm-hmm.
What's crazy to me is how often that happens. And I don't know if it's employers ignoring it, the world ignoring it, but if we want to look at it purely from an economics perspective, it is so much cheaper to let somebody do nothing for 3 months than try to replace them, especially if they have years of experience. And so, like, just as we had one example within our team, one of our guys burned out really hard. And he burned out because he'd been working too hard, he'd been working too long, and he just needed a break. And so, work was suffering, happiness was suffering, all of it was. And we basically just had a mutual agreement of do what you can, but take as much time as you need. If you need a month, it's fine. If you need 3 months, it's fine. And guess what? He came back. He got over his burnout, came back happier than ever, more devoted than ever. And we didn't have to retrain somebody in all of the knowledge and experience that person had, which takes years. And, this is somebody that had already been working with us for several years and had a really in-depth knowledge of what we do, how we do it, how our products work, et cetera. I can't train somebody to do that in 3 months.
Yeah.
That's just silly. So yeah, you want 3 months off? Take 3 months.
Yeah, and then they know you're in their corner too, because no one wants to see someone else burning out. I mean, it's so common today just because of the always on, go, go, go world that we live in. But because you yourself had mentioned that you hit a wall with burnout, and it took some.
I did. It took me a year to get over it.
Yeah, and you're at the top.
I was practically worthless. Like in terms of like my role in the company, like the way that I'll describe it is I basically did nothing except click the button to make sure that people got paid. Like I processed payroll because that was a mostly monotonous, mindless task that I could do without really thinking about it. But beyond that, like, I would kind of piddle around and do little things here and there, but I didn't do quality work for a year because I burned out. And so we've got to protect ourselves and our team from burning out. It's really important.
Yeah, definitely. So just real quick, how is a complete left turn,
Sure.
but what was the inspiration for starting the brewery? Because you're going from digital to the physical space, physical products. There's so much there's a lot of overhead, obviously, with a big team and support for digital, but it is a completely different world in the physical retail space.
So there was a few things. A couple of them are entirely selfish. Uh, I love beer.
Hmm.
I fell in love with craft beer in I don't know 2010, 2011, something like that. Um, and I did a deep dive into the world. I learned all about brewing. I traveled all around the world, visiting different breweries, trying beers from all around the world. And in 2013, I moved back to my hometown, and there was nothing here, and I missed it. I missed having local breweries around me, places that I could go and have a relaxed environment where I could sit down and have a beer or two with friends and just have a nice, chill, casual conversation. It didn't exist. And so I wanted it. So I built it. I had a problem and I decided to solve that problem. Um, and then, so it was also how I got over burnout. Because the year that I burned out on WordPress and the digital side of the business was basically the year that I built the brewery. And so I took a year away from the screen, with the exception of running payroll and doing small things here and there, and I built the brewery. And we approached it with kind of the same mentality that we did hiring, in that we're going to do this as financially conservatively as we can. So we built very small. We paid for everything in cash. And we said that we had to be willing to walk away if this doesn't work. And so in order to be able to walk away, I better not owe anybody any money.
Yeah.
And so, we built it a little bit slowly. It took a couple of years to do it. But it was also one of our goals was, and this is the same reason that we now own various parts of real estate, is we wanted to diversify. So one of my long-term goals is to diversify the company, because we don't know what the world's going to be like in 10 years. And I'm not going to have all of our eggs in one basket. It's WordPress isn't going to disappear tomorrow. It might disappear in 5 years. Not very likely because it's pretty large at this point,
Yeah.
but it's possible. Or our industry, or the products that we build within WordPress could disappear. And obviously I wouldn't be able to transition our whole digital team over to working in the brewery. Number one, because they wouldn't all want to, and it also just wouldn't logistically work for lots of different reasons. But at the end of the day, as a business, we wanted to diversify, and we'll continue to diversify. I think it's really, really important. I think it's also really important, as our teams grow, to ensure that we have financial leverage, and for example, with lenders and banks, because let's say that COVID-19 version 2 happens in 3 years, but its economic impact is different than it was for 2020, and the entire software market goes down. One of our goals will be to keep everybody employed, keep everybody busy to the best of our ability. And if that means that we have to take on debt to do it, I'm not saying that's a door that we're going to walk through, but it's one that we want to make sure is open to us. And so in taking advantage of a time when we are financially comfortable and have extra leeway, and investing in tangible assets, a brewery which has a lot of stainless steel equipment, for example, and physical real estate, we have leverage with financial lenders at this point. And so if we need to bring on debt in order to meet payroll, it's an option now. It didn't used to be, because the truth of the matter is that most banks don't understand how digital software companies work. They don't really give a shit that you make $5 million a year, because what are they going to take? You have no assets to them.
Exactly. So. Yeah, and that diversification, that is everything. That you're diversifying within your products, in terms of within the line of products. You have different income streams. You have the brewery, you have the real estate. That's very valuable, because they're all going to contribute to keeping the boat afloat. If something happens, like you said, if that market just dissolves, the other parts will hopefully keep you going, along with lending or whatever it is, while you solve the next problem. Because there is always going to be a new problem to solve.
They also give us, another advantage of diversification is they give you avenues for your team to change gears if they ever want to or need to. I mean, so, if, for example, we have somebody in our team that needs a change of pace, I don't our options are a little bit limited. Like if they want to totally change their industry, but if one of our team members came and said, you know what, I'd really like to work on the real estate side, like that is potentially an option. And as we continue to diversify more, like that's kind of one of the goals, is to allow to make that option available. And for myself too, like, the truth is I'm a problem solver. I'm an entrepreneur, and I need new problems to solve. And so at some point, in order for me to stay motivated, like I have to keep tackling new problems. And so, we mentioned real estate a couple of times. Like one of the problems that I want to solve is conservation. Not all real estate is about, rentals or commercial spaces. Some of it's also preserving nature for what it is. That is a problem. That is a problem that I want to work on solving. And like, it's a problem that for me mentally gives me a lot of energy. And when I can put that energy there, like it reinvigorates me to work back on the digital side of things. And so, it's a way to keep motivation going too.
Yeah, I love that it comes back to supporting your employees. Like you said, like if they needed to pivot, they needed to change. Like you're thinking ahead on that. You're thinking ahead on the environment. Like I love just the core sort of principles behind your company. So I don't want to take more of your time. We're already hitting an hour mark. So where should we send people to check out everything you're up to?
You should go to sandhillsdev.com. So sandhillsdev.com, or just Google Sandhills Development and you'll find us.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much again for doing this. It's been a long time coming.
Pleasure.
And yeah, hopefully we can maybe have a round 2 at one point in the future.
Sure. Anytime.
Awesome.
I appreciate it, Jeff.
Take care.
You too.
I want to thank Pippin for joining me on this episode. Be sure to check out everything he's up to at sandhillsdev.com. Maybe not everything he's up to, but check out his business and all the different products that are really excellent. If you have an online business, if you're starting an e-commerce website or anything like that, I couldn't recommend his products anymore. Definitely check out sandhillsdev.com. As always, this episode of Started Now is brought to you by Built, which is actually a platform powered by Pippin's plugins at Sandhills Development. But at Built, we help you get started online. Whether you want to start a blog or a business, head on over to built.co. That's bylt.co to get started. Built, your website, built for you, simply. And finally, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening right now. Also, be sure to check out the video version on YouTube, which is sort of my favorite version of the show. And that'll do it for this week. Again, I'm Jeff Sarris. This has been Starting Now, and I'll see you next time.